This is the Schmo with the Pro, with the Hall of Famer, the Vice President of Regulatory Affairs for the UFC, Mr. Marc Ratner in the flesh. UFCX, how we doing?
Schmo, first of all, I love your new look. Very, very nice. Doing great. I'm just loving to see the crowds here. It's unbelievable. I'm thrilled.
So does the Schmo. We appreciate the compliments because, as you know, Mr. Ratner, the champion has a name, and the Schmo has to give his props to him.
The champion has a name. God, beautiful.
That's Charles do Bronx Oliveira.
That's right. If it's good enough for the champ, it's certainly good enough for the Schmo.
Certainly, Mr. Ratner. Now, you are everywhere. You've been behind the scenes for all the combat sports action. Without you, there is no UFC. A lot of the Schmoes out there, they aren't familiar with all that. How much pride do you take in knowing that you are a man who's made a dream come true?
Well, that's way too much credit. There's always more than just a person. I'm more the face, but I had a lot of people going to New York with me all over the country, all over the world. But it's so gratifying to see the sport growing like it is, and it's going to get bigger and bigger.
Well, you're responsible for educating a lot of these athletic commissions, especially the new ones. Like when the UFC came to New York, a lot of that education process goes through Marc Ratner. Like, a lot of people don't realize that Marc Ratner's roles and responsibilities are very, very important for this sport to grow and prosper.
Well, when Lorenzo came to me 2005 and early 2006, that's what he wanted, to grow the sport. When they bought it, they said, we're going to run to regulation, not away from it. And the former owners, they didn't want to do it that way. So I'm indebted to the Fertitta brothers and Dana, and it's 16 years, and still great to be here.
So a lot of people talk about open scoring. What side of the fence are you on with having open scoring in the sport of mixed martial arts, specifically the UFC, Mr. Ratner?
Against. I'm adamantly against. I've been involved in open scoring in boxing. I understand all of the arguments. One of my favorite moments in combat sports, this may sound silly to a lot, but when I hear Michael or Bruce Buffer say, you're waiting after a 3-round or 5-round fight, and say, and still or new. It's an iconic moment that you don't get in any other sport. And I do understand some of the arguments. All I would tell any cornerman, never say that you got the fight in the bag to your fighters. Say, man, this is a close fight. We don't know how they're going to judge it. Go out in that 3rd round and fight like hell.
But as someone who's been involved in the sport of boxing and knowing when mixed martial arts came about 30 years ago, we incorporated the same rule structure as boxing. Do you believe mixed martial arts needs to have their own scoring system, or you like the current system we're still using right now?
I think it needs to be modified some. You got 50 different commissions, probably maybe 38 or so that are current, and to change the rules and really do it would be a tough undertaking. But yeah, I think there could be some changes, but for the most part it works. And I would say that 80% of the rounds anybody can judge. There are 10-9 rounds. It's those 20% that are really tough. And in a 5-minute round, usually you can make a decision. That's why we don't see too many 10-10 rounds. But in the Thug Rose fight, it was pretty tough to make a decision there, and I understand that. And with Carla, so yeah, I'm still on the no open scoring side.
And it wasn't too long ago the Schmo sat next to you on a plane. We're going to Austin, Texas. We're having a conversation about combat sports, and another topic of conversation was all these different athletic commissions, all the judging, the inconsistency in scoring the criteria one specific way over another. How do we get that thing to improve, Mr. Ratner?
I got to keep meeting with the commissions. Excuse me. We had a great seminar last week with our analysts and our play-by-play with 2 judges and 2 referees going over the criteria to make sure that what the analysts are saying is also conducive with what the judges are looking at. So it's about education, and we're going to keep doing that.
Certainly. And speaking of education, you're an author right here. Mr. Ratner, Ringside, your book. Talk to the Schmo about this before we get your John Hancock on this good-looking thing.
And if I wrote John Hancock, you'd be upset with me. But what we did was Endeavor bought they bought the UFC. They have a company called William Morris under them, which is a big for artists and TV and radio personalities, and they do books too. And they came to me and said, have you ever thought about writing a book? I said, no. They said, we always hear you telling stories. So they put me together with a ghostwriter, and we did it telephonically for the most part. Had him come in person for a fight and spend days with me. And took about 6 months, and then we wrote it, and this year we published it.
And the name Ringside's very appropriate for someone like you. We got to get your John Hancock on this thing right now. Can we get a final message for all the Marc Ratner fans out there worldwide?
No, I'm just thrilled with the sport. I think in the future there'll be South Africa someday. There'll be more fights in China, more fights in Japan. I think it's such a worldwide sport, and it's still evolving. It's still a new sport. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. And look at this expo. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's thrilled for me to be still involved.
It's like Super Bowl week for combat sports, specifically the UFC. He's the pro, I'm the Schmo, UFC X, Las Vegas, Nevada, UFC 276 fight week. We're out.